Hi everyone, Mr. Geppetto here with Rhyme Signatures, the nerdiest music review this side of being the first non-biblical person to be swallowed by a novelty-sized whale and live to talk about it. And today we're going to be doing a review of the new Steve Hackett album, The Circus and the Night Whale. Oh good lord, is there anything more intimidating to me than the prospect of reviewing the new album of a gentleman with such an incredibly vast and far-reaching discography as the legendary Steve Hackett? Well, yes, the thought of nuclear war, the idea that no matter how hard I try, I will never in my life summon the courage to do a bungee jump, and of course everyone's favourite, an unscheduled meeting with a manager appearing in your Outlook calendar in 15 minutes' time. But aside from the obvious things in life, I honestly find reviewing legacy artists like Hackett a very daunting prospect. I, after all, am a self-confessed sweet summer child of ignorance when it comes to the golden era of prog rock. I'm a 2000s and onwards kind of guy for the most part, so I always pause, hesitate, and weigh in the value of adding my voice to the discourse for an artist like this, especially when you consider that The Circus and the Night Whale is like their 30th studio LP or something like that. But hey ho, I'm here and I'm talking about this, so in the immortal words of Magnus Magnusson, I've started, so I'll finish. Now, I cannot imagine for a second that there is anyone watching this video who doesn't know who Steve Hackett is, so I will refrain from too long-winded of an introduction here. Chiefly known for the absolutely stonking footprint he left on the world with his guitar work in Genesis, Steve Hackett started his solo career while still in the band, and of all of the albums of his that I've listened to prior to this one, Voyage of the Acolyte, his debut, is my favourite. Now, don't let the fact that it's the only one of his albums I've listened to distract you. I'm a real prog fan, I swear, I promise you. You know, actually, in some ways, I'm weirdly glad that I have such a minute knowledge of Hackett's solo career, because I feel this kind of affords me a slightly less conventional angle when reviewing this record. All y'all Hackett fans out there are coming at this one with 101 preconceived notions and ideas, and I'm just sat here thinking, ooh, Genesis Guitar Man, he's made an album with a whale on the cover. So, going into this album as blind and as ignorant as I am has left me with some intrigue and feelings about what I've just experienced. And with my lack of familiarity with about 99% of his solo discography, I don't even need to stress about where to put this in terms of rankings. It's a bit of a relief, actually, especially when I keep reminding myself that even if I was to go massively out of character and berate this album mercilessly to within an inch of its life, I'm just one little guy on the internet, and only about 100 people are going to be exposed to my weird takes about this kind of music anyway. Fortunately, there's only been one legacy artist these past couple of years whose works have truly invoked my ire, and in that camp, Roger Waters remains alone. I am pleased to say that I've had an absolutely fabulous time with The Circus and the Night Whale, and this is most assuredly more of an I.O. in quality than a Dark Side Redux. Throughout my whole time with this album, I kept trying to think what this reminded me of. Now bear in mind, I'm not talking about any which came first situations here. Ain't no chicken or the egg going on. And while I was gathering my thoughts over my 6th or 7th listen or so to this, it struck me. This record is like what would happen if you crossed old school Genesis with 90s Joe Satriani and then introduced it to the Deer Hunter and the Neil Morse Band. It's honestly some of the most fun I've had with a prog record in ages. Everything feels so delightfully cheeky, so knowingly whimsical, but yet with an established wisdom and knowledge sitting underneath the brash bravado and theatricality of it all. Now there's a lot of tracks on offer here, 13 in total, taken across around 45 minutes of music. And while that does mean there's a few meatier songs on offer here where the ideas and thoughts contained within are given time to bloom and flourish, there's also a fair few interstitial tracks. Now, I hesitate to call these filler in any way, because even on these smaller nuggets, Hackett's compositions are tight, sharp, and memorable. He's not making, long tracks just for the sake of it. He's approached this album with the less is more mindset that a songwriter of this kind of experience really should be doing. I find it really refreshing. In a world where so many progressive rock albums are stretched through these insane running times, it often feels like it's being done so because there's this preconceived notion that's just what prog is, which I think is a load of rubbish. Prog rock should be about creativity, experimentation, exploring sounds and ideas that might not work on paper, and just seeing what sticks. I mean, sure, okay, that sometimes results in longer songs, but it should never come at the expense of knowing when to say enough is enough. And in that respect, Hackett has really hit the nail on the head with this album. There's so many creative passages, so many little moments that show the progressive spark is alive and well, and all without ever outstaying its welcome. This record is tight, it's trim, it's a great example of how to structure something to be interesting, to showcase that creative zing, but without ever becoming bloated or uninteresting. Now, I think what I appreciate most about this album is honestly the fact that it sounds quite contemporary. The production is crisp and clear, with nothing sounding muddy or buried, and the overall presentation of the ideas feels modern and eclectic, rather than being mired in the past and clinging to nostalgia to sell itself. Yes, there's elements of the old school, of course there is. Hackett's guitar tone feels classical and steeped in history, with some of the instrumentation choices being straight out of the playbook of 1970s prog rock. But there's a sheen of, newness to it all. Something about the whole package as it comes together feels like the offering of someone brand new to the scene with everything to prove, but with the same worldly knowledge and experience as someone who's been doing this for like 50 years. And that's exactly what Hackett's been doing his whole life, But man, oh man, he is not slowing down at all. His playing is electric, further cementing him as an absolutely goated guitar player. Now, I've always loved his time in Genesis, and the moments he gets to shine back then are amazing, but dang if this record hasn't made me yell "shut up" on numerous occasions like some sort of excitable teenager from the early 2000s. And it's not just the guitars on this album that have really been affecting me. The arrangements overall are just wonderful. The sense of theatricality and joy to be found in the lifeblood of the record is so addictive. Tracks like Get Me Out really showing off that sense of bombast and bravado, but then following it up with songs like Ghost Moon and Living Love, which demonstrates his ability to write these fantastic guitar-driven anthems that really set my heartstrings on fire. It is wonderful to see an artist like Hackett, this deep into his career, able to make music that catches me by surprise the way this one has done. I'll be honest with you all, I went into this album with kind of low expectations, I've always felt a little bit cautious with albums from people who've been recording for far longer than I've even been alive, as I always worry that the creative spark has long since died, and given that I've seen bands who've only been around for like 10 years hit this wall already, I don't think it's entirely unreasonable of me to be nervous about this being a potential sticking point. But I'm honestly so glad that my fears have been assuaged, as the more I listen to this album, the more I've fallen for it. It really does feel like it's taken everything that I do love about the golden era of prog and fused it beautifully with the best parts of all these new neo-prog bands that have sprung up so recently. I really do feel like I've probably been missing out if this album is any indication of what Steve's solo career is like right now. I feel like I've got to go and check out all those albums of his that are considered classics, because dang if this album isn't my new favourite of his discography. From all 2 albums of it that I've listened to. So, what else can I say about Steve Hackett's The Circus and The Night Whale? Back when I've been really thinking back through this review, I've been sitting here thinking and worrying, have I said enough about X? Oh good lord, what about my thoughts on Y? What if people don't think I've expressed my feelings about Z adequately enough? And I got to wondering why I was feeling so bothered about this. And then it struck me. I only ever get these fears when I'm writing about something that I really, really love. And like a light bulb going on above my head, I realised that I absolutely loved this album. This is honestly one of the most complete packages for a classic-style progressive rock album released in the 2020s. Not quite so avant-garde and self-indulgent as Peter Gabriel's I.O., but also not so steeped in the arrogance and tenacity of Roger Waters' Dark Side of the Moon Redux. Of these 3 grandfathers of the genre, I can honestly say that Steve Hackett has impressed me the most. No, he's not reinventing the wheel here, but he's refined it to such an absurdly brilliant degree that I've never seen such a perfect circle in all my life. I've had an absolutely storming time with this album. It stirred feelings in me that I simply wasn't expecting from it, and it leaves me feeling rejuvenated, energized, and ready to face the day each and every time I hear it. I will be proudly grabbing a physical copy of this one, and I cannot wait to go back in time and find all the stuff I've been missing out from this legendary, phenomenal guitarist. This is all, of course, my opinion, guys, as you know, so if you have listened to The Circus and the Night Whale, please do tell me what you thought about this record in the comments down there. If you did like this video, please do give it a thumb. Please do share it around with anyone else who you think would possibly enjoy it. And as always, do please consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. My link tree will be left down below where you can find all the places to find me outside of YouTube. So please do drop me a follow, see what I'm getting up to. But as always, guys, until next time, keep your rhyme signatures extremely odd.